Good morning, Valley. Pastor Dave here. It's Thursday morning, May the 14th, and I hope your day is off to a good start. And maybe more importantly, I hope you have some plans to get outside later today because it looks like it's going to be a beauty out there. Well, last night, Wednesday night, was kind of a big night for Minnesota. Governor Walz went on television and he made a statement that it's time for us to start moving out of the stay at home phase in our response to the pandemic, and we're going to be moving into what he's calling a stay safe phase. So the message is pretty clear. Let's start pulling out of this, but let's be careful. Let's not do it too fast, and let's we don't have to stay home, but we really need to be careful and stay safe. Okay, well, I'm glad that we're taking first steps. And I want you to know that your church leaders, your ministry staff at Valley, we are really planning and thinking. We're putting together what we're calling a rethink and regather strategy. And so you'll be hearing more of that in the days that are coming as we try to figure out how to do church in this next phase of stay safe. So stay tuned for that. You know, today we're going to live our lives and we're going to deal with the circumstances as they are. And a lot of our present circumstance is pretty wrapped up in trying to imagine what's coming next, isn't it? It's almost like there is a built-in futility to each day because we're trying to live the day, but we don't know exactly where we're going or how fast we're going to go. Kind of like the stay safe phase that Governor Walz was talking about. I'm glad we're going somewhere. Where exactly, we don't know. How fast, we don't know. But one thing's for sure, we're on the road and we're moving. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the book of Ruth yet, as I encouraged you to do a couple of days ago, because that's what I'm going to be preaching on this Sunday. And the last Good Morning Valley I mentioned Ruth, the story of Ruth, and looked at a few verses in chapter 1. And I won't recap that whole story, not time to do that. But I do hope you'll read the book of Ruth. It's a wonderful story, and it reads pretty much almost like a play. It reads like a play, and you wonder what is going to happen and how will things unfold. Kind of like we think about our own lives every day. What is today all about, and how will things unfold? When we met Ruth in chapter 1, she was just committing herself to stick with her mother-in-law, Naomi, no matter what. She pretty much says, I don't know what the future holds, you don't know what the future holds, but we're going to stick together as we do that. Well, in chapter 2 of the book of Ruth, they make it back to Judah, and they make it back to the area of Bethlehem. And they begin to just go about the basics. We're going to need some food. We're going to need a place to stay. So that's what Naomi and Ruth give themselves to. And Naomi is older, so Ruth sets about the task of finding some work and finding some food for them. Now, she doesn't know how the story ends. She's just doing her best with today. You and I don't know what tomorrow will bring. We don't know the future. We don't know what the new normal is going to be. If whatever it is, the new normal is, I guess, something you look back over your shoulder. It's hard to see what it is looking forward. I was reading an essay by C.S. Lewis, just part of an essay earlier this week, and he was using the illustration of a play, and he was talking about how we get sidetracked and off the rails a bit when we are always trying to figure out what is the end of the story while we're in it. And he talks about characters in a play, and he says, listen to this, he says, how can the characters in a play guess the plot? We are not the playwright. We are not the producer. We are not even the audience. We are on the stage. To play well the scenes in which we are on concerns us much more than to guess about the scenes that follow it. Do you hear that? He's saying it's more important to do our part today right than it is to guess about tomorrow. It's better to play our scene well than to try to guess how does the play end. And then he goes on in the essay and he uses an example from a play written by Shakespeare, King Lear. And in that play, he says there's a character, it's a servant. And he says the character is so small that it doesn't even have a name. He's just referred to in the script as first servant. And he has about 8 lines. So he doesn't even have a name. He's just got a tiny little bit of the script that's his. He's on the stage for only a short time. But Lewis points out that some of the main characters that have names and have power and seem to be calling all the shots, they don't actually know what's going on. And the servant, this nameless servant, is actually more on track and has a better idea of what's really going on than some of the main characters. And in fact, Lewis says this character, when he speaks his lines, it doesn't go well and he gets killed for what he says. But the interesting thing is, Lewis says, is that servant's small part was actually one of the key moments in the entire story. It's hard to know which part of which day is a key moment in your life, isn't it? We often look back and say, yeah, that was the moment that things turned. And we'll often say, we didn't realize it at the time, but that was a very important thing that just happened. It's hard to see the context of any given moment while you're living it. I remember in one of the Good Morning devotions that Pastor Brad gave some time back, he talked about how we can bless the unexpected moments of life by living with integrity, by being the right thing, even when we don't know exactly what's going on around us. I thought that was really strong. I think that living today with integrity is much more important than worrying about what is the next thing to happen. What will we do today? Now, back to the story of Ruth. So Ruth's out starting to find work, trying to find some food, trying to just provide for the basics for herself and for her mother-in-law, Naomi. And she goes and she works. She finds a field where they are harvesting. And she starts working in that field. And a man named Boaz asks, who's that girl? Now, she probably stood out. She probably looked a little bit rough from the trip. Remember, she's homeless. She's penniless. She was also a Moabitess. She wasn't from around there, so she probably stuck out in the group of people who were trying to get some work and trying to glean around the edges. And actually, a lot of people were probably just trying to pick up the scraps that were being left behind by the workers. But Boaz takes note of her, and he decides that he will protect her and help her. And in verse 10 of chapter 2, Ruth says, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" And Boaz replied, "I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland, and you came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Wow. She was just out looking for some food, looking for a place to just kind of get by, and she unexpectedly takes the notice of the landowner, and he pronounces a blessing on her and says, "You have lived with integrity. My prayer, my blessing is that the God of Israel would reward you for your faithfulness and your goodness." Turns out that Ruth was already being blessed because she was doing the right thing that day. She didn't know the end of the story. She's a minor character in the plot, but she's doing the right thing, and God takes notice. And we'll talk more about this on Sunday, but she has no idea that the story has just taken a turn where she is about to enter the ancestry, the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah. This Gentile, homeless, penniless woman who has integrity and love for her heartbroken mother-in-law has now just entered the stage as a nobody, but she's about to become the great-great-great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus. It's hard to know what things you're doing today are important. Let's just assume that every step we take is important. Let's assume that every moment today we should be watching for how to live with integrity, how to honor God, and maybe keep our eyes peeled for little glimpses that God has some blessings waiting for us as we take refuge in Him. All right, that's it for today. I hope that you will plan to join us for worship on Sunday morning. We'll be online at 10:30. Look forward to spending more time with you then. Thanks to everybody who's been participating in the weekly Bible studies and everybody who joined us last night for prayer online with Dewey. It's great seeing you. I look forward to seeing the Moth Brothers, the men's group later this morning. And just God bless you all. Have a great couple of days here. We'll see you on Sunday.